The second that there's no longer a to-do list, there's no longer project ideas, there's no longer projects in different stages, you're no longer an entrepreneur, you're no longer a creator. It's done. Like all the chaos and the ideas and starting things and executing things or not executing things, it's a gift that we get.
Creativity and business can often feel like two opposing forces. One requires flow and emotion, and the other demands strategy and structure. But in order for our creative work to get off the ground, we got to lean into both. Today, I connected with Tara Mewis, the president of Honeycut Studios, a creative agency known for its innovative storytelling. Over her career, she has interviewed thousands of people, bringing their stories to life through film. Tara has written, filmed, and produced content for 20 years. In this conversation, she shares with us how she's been able to balance creative vision with leadership and growing a team, why we should practice being embarrassed. Oh boy. And a key mental shift to help creatives finish with a start and finally get those creative projects across that finish line. Done. This, my friends, is Tara Mewis. I recently met this woman who I am super fascinated with. Not only is she ultra creative, but she is a badass when it comes to building things and building a business. And what I would say is an unconventional career. So Tara, thank you for joining us today. My first question to you is, let's say you're sitting on an airplane and somebody looks over at you and they're like, so what do you do? How do you respond to that?
I say I'm a storyteller.
That's what you say to a stranger? Is I'm a storyteller?
Yeah, really vague. No, funny. That's what I told my husband. We met online and I said that I wanted to be as vague as possible. No, I don't think I'd say I'm a storyteller. I'd say I'm a president of a video and film production company. And I actually hate saying the word film because no one uses film anymore. Well, most don't. But that's how people understand the industry. So yeah, that's what it would be.
But internally, like when you think about what you do you identify more as a storyteller first or president of a company? Because those are two very different roles.
Well, I think that's changed. I think early on, I've been running this company for 13 years. And then I've got a past in television broadcast. So I think early on, I would have said I'm a creative, I'm a storyteller. I take something that doesn't exist and make it into something visual. But now I'm focused more on running the company and strategy and understanding of the future of where video production is going. And that's where, I'm researching all the time. So I've shifted a little bit. I'm a little bit of a different person now.
That's what I think is so cool about you is there's two sides of your brain that you're operating from. And usually I ask folks, like, are you a creative entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial creative? Like, which one do you identify as more? And I haven't been able to figure that out about you, if you're first creative or first entrepreneur.
Ooh, that's tough.
Isn't it? That's like the hardest question.
I mean, my brain has this nonstop motor that runs, and it's constantly coming up with creative ideas and dissecting the things in front of me and trying to understand how to flip them on their heads or how to infuse them with something that makes it better than what it is. But then I'm also always looking for opportunity in everything I see. So I don't know. I think it's kind of 50-50. And I love listening to entrepreneurs and learning from entrepreneurs. And I love the entrepreneurial spirit. And I love the drive that most entrepreneurs have. I'm very attracted to that energy. So yeah, an interesting mix for sure.
What I've been trying to figure out is like how, because I'm like you, I don't identify as an entrepreneur at all. I've worked with enough of them to be like, it's just not me. I definitely am creative first. but I spend probably the most of my time listening and reading books. Like I'm going through all of Alex Ramosey's books right now, and I listen to builders podcasts and stuff like that. So it's weird because I love the creative world and identify that more, but I feel like we need so much more entrepreneurial spirit in us, because in order to get anything off the ground, you have to be willing to understand what it looks like to run a business, right? And so I'm curious with you, when did that kind of realization come to you? Because I know you were in the journalism world before then. You've been telling stories and communicating and really great at that. At what point were you, because I think you produced a morning show at one point and so forth. So obviously there was some like leadership in you from the beginning. But do you remember like a moment where you're like, damn, if I really want to push this creative stuff forward, I've got to become really, really good at business?
It almost like it happened in parallel. I don't know. When I was a kid, I was always thinking of ways to sell things. And, I don't know if that's where it originated. I would steal my mom's makeup and go door to door selling it. I would put, oh yeah, I would put like googly eyes on rocks and paint them and go door to door trying to sell that. I would attempt to create um, almost like a little fair in my backyard, which, I think that I drew pictures of merry-go-rounds and stuff that didn't actually exist in the backyard. I think I asked my dad to build something. It didn't happen. But the idea of creating an event, having people buy tickets and coming to have an experience was always something really interesting to me early on. So I think that was just part of my DNA at the very beginning. I didn't really practice it through school much. But then when I got into my 20s, I dipped my toes in it a little bit and helped create events. I had a group of women, and we called ourselves the Punk Rock Pussy Posse when I was living in a city called Winnipeg. And we would throw really big events, and we were on the news, and we would do interviews, and we would be spray painting things on sidewalks at 2 a.m. to advertise for the event. And then we'd have lineups down the block, people trying to get up or trying to get into the parties. And I remember like staying up till 4 a.m. and cutting out like 9-foot snowflakes that we would hang from the ceilings of these warehouses. And we had kissing booths, and we had costumes, and, they were always really big, visually stunning parties. And they were notorious. That really excited me. Just the process and working with the team of people and the ideation and everyone coming together to do something that's really actually hard to do. You're not really getting the credit you think you might want, but you don't really care that you're not getting the credit. You just are building something as a community. And I love that. I love doing projects where you're not watching the clock and you don't care how many hours you put in, because you're just so pumped and energized, and you want to see people come and be a part of this thing, and you want to watch their faces and how they react. And that's really a big driver of when I started my business. I want to create something that people would have a reaction to. Did I even answer the question?
Yeah, I think I'm more upset that we didn't meet as teenagers or whatever, because I swear to God, my email address was a punk rock prom queen at hotmail.com.
Oh my God.
So I'm telling you, man, like I would have like wanted so hardcore. I think what's interesting about what you said is I didn't care if I got the credit. I just wanted to build something cool. And what's interesting is you ended up going into journalism and being in front of the camera and being a communicator. So I'm guessing there is an element of you that does want to perform or narrate or something? Or was that just another skill set for you to learn and you found it intriguing?
That's an interesting one. I think I went through a period where I wanted to be an actress. And I think that was more because I wanted to be part of a crew working at making something. And in the TV thing was, that's not where my head was at. I mean, I was in the middle of figuring out what to do with my life and was sitting in a lounge and I saw this woman with a broadcast camera on her shoulder doing an interview. And, you know, this really dates me, but like I hadn't seen a woman behind a camera before by herself. And I could not stop staring. And I remember, I think I was on a date and I wasn't even listening to the guy anymore. I just kept staring at this woman and finally went, excuse me for a second, ran over to her and said, what are you doing? What is this? What is this for? And she said, oh, I work for the news. I'm a news reporter. And yeah, we chatted for a while. And I remember going back to my seat going, I'm going to do that next. And so that was part of my mission. I thought it was cool. She was capturing something on camera. She was doing the interview. She didn't have a boss standing by telling her how to do it or what to do. She just was independent. And yeah, something about that just like sparked something in me. So I ended up getting hired out of school to work for CTV News here in Canada. And it's, you know, for a good chunk, I did have my own camera people that I worked with, but I also did a lot of my own videography. And I had to learn these huge broadcast cameras and the lighting and the microphones and all of that stuff. I had to learn how to, you know, put a story together. I had to learn how to pitch a story, come up with an idea for a story at 8:30 a.m. and have it delivered by 5 p.m., which is kind of a crazy task. But so I loved that. I loved the editing. I became obsessed with editing and could sit in the edit suite for days. I just got to a point where I no longer wanted to be in front of the camera. That just wasn't as interesting to me as the creation of the thing. So I think that led to the idea of creating content for other people.
What did you pull out of that experience, though, that's helped you so much in this production company?
So much. Being able to arrive at a scene or on set or in a client's office space and look around and know exactly what I have to film. I know what the story that needs to be told. Obviously, we have pre-interviews with the people we work with. I just can come up with the story very, very quickly. And I'm really good at troubleshooting because with the news, I mean, you had one shot of doing everything. You had one shot to interview this person on the street. You had one shot to get, an interview from a politician. They would say something and then they're gone, in their car and they take off. So I think I just got really, really good at laying the groundwork before we even had the content, like understanding what needed to be or how to put the pieces together and knowing what I had to capture. And and that's just helped with so many of our projects. I mean, I'm no longer in the position now where I'm actually, I'm not going to set and I'm not behind the camera and I'm not editing. I've got a team that does that and I'm strictly on the strategy side. But it helped with the turnaround of projects. I was finishing projects very, very quickly. So I was making money very, very quickly. So what would take another filmmaker and editor, 2 weeks was taking me 24 hours. So that's what I got from the job. And so that's why my company became successful very quickly, I think.
So you were able to, I came to you and I'm like, here's all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You're able to assemble it and get to the heart of what the story actually is and then be able to build up from there.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you have Because I feel like a lot of times I know I will go to the thing after the thing, right? And like try to assemble all the stuff and get everything figured out when really if you spend more time with what is the heart of this story, what's the transition, what's the change, what's the point here, then some of the other stuff seems like to fall in place a little bit more. And I will waste a lot of time doing it reverse or doing it parallel, as opposed to it sounds like you guys will spend some time in a pre-meeting and really develop what the core theme is. And maybe it's intuition, maybe it's a skill set, but you're really good at figuring out what that is. And I'm curious what you're looking for when somebody comes to you and they just, I call it throwing up on people. I know that's super gross,
Mm-hmm.
but it's true. It's just like throwing it all out there. What are you looking for? Where's the gold at?
The gold we find in, it's like the story within the story. We have to do a bit of digging. So many times we're talking to someone and they want us to do a documentary, or they want a story told about their life or their business or whatever it might be. They're talking away, they're giving us like the Coles notes of their business and their family or whatever it might be. And then, we like to dig in and go, okay, like, let's talk about your passions. Let's talk about the things that you maybe have never told anyone, the things you've maybe never gotten credit for, the things you wouldn't find about you online. And then you just keep on digging and pulling at that thread until they're like, yeah, I actually won the Guinness Book of World Records for backflips or whatever the heck it is. And you're like, okay, we're starting the story there. you know? Yeah, and that's my favorite thing about this job. And I don't think we actually get the opportunity to do that enough and spend that much time in pre-production sitting down with whoever it is we're working with and get like really, really keep digging and digging until we find like the gold nuggets. We do need to do that more. I think the busier we've gotten as a company and with the more projects we're taking on, we're losing that a little bit. But we'll bring it back.
Tell me some of those questions. You just said like, what's your passion, whatever. Like, what other questions are you asking folks to figure out the essence, the heart of what they're trying to say?
Yeah, the things that bring them joy. The moments where they looked in the mirror and wanted to pinch themselves or realized like they had created something pretty magical. I'm digging for the real human emotional moments. I think that's where you find the best stuff. I don't really care about the successes and the accolades, and you can find that stuff online on anyone really. I want the human elements, the things that when someone is watching a story about someone or a business or whatever, I want those aha moments or those like, oh, that's so cool, or had no idea, or, that's more interesting. That's memorable. The other stuff isn't memorable.
It is when we're sitting in like the production seat, like of thinking, damn, that's a good story because that's vulnerable and real and honest. But then when you switch over to the other seat as the communicator and the creator, damn, that's like the scary shit. Like, do I really want to go there and be vulnerable and talk about XYZ? I was just having a conversation this morning with another creator, and she has a brilliant script and it's really, really good, but you can tell there's some missing gaps there. And she'll be honest. She's like, it's really hard for me to get vulnerable about XYZ and I don't really want to go there. But you can feel it all over the script. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just like, there's more to be said here, and there's a little bit more depth, but it's scary. And I'm curious, like with these brands, you guys have worked with this stuff has gone on freaking television before and got broadcast to a ton of people, and so sometimes that the real stuff, the good stuff, is also the stuff we don't want to share. So I'm curious how you kind of approach that, or if people are hesitant with it.
Oh, well, it's building relationships. I mean, the one example is Brett Wilson. So he's probably one of the most well-known Canadians. He's a mega entrepreneur. He was in, so we have Dragon's Den. You guys have Shark Tank. He was one of the dragons. So we are doing a documentary on him. He's got some health issues. He's got some interesting family stuff. He's built a really unique workplace in Calgary. He's he's kind of an open book about a lot of things, but we wanted him to get emotional, and we wanted to figure out really what makes him tick. And in the beginning, and we're working with his assistant, and it was a lot of, I don't think so. I don't think he'll be comfortable with that. We were kind of really slowly navigating things. But over time, and as we worked with him more, it was just I think he just got comfortable with us, and he started opening up more. And then there was a lot of laughter and a lot of, we infused the documentary with a lot of humor, which I think he ended up loving. I think other people would have approached it to be very professional and serious and like I mentioned before, like just list his accolades, and we flipped it on its head, and we're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to follow him and watch like a slice of life of what does his life look like? What are the things that make him cry? What are the things that light him up? And what does he think about his life? What does he actually think about what he's accomplished? Not just listing off the things he's accomplished. I don't think we actually talked much about what he accomplished at all through the documentary, but it ended up being, a really successful documentary. So, I don't know. It's relationships. It's just getting people comfortable and making them think differently. That's all.
I'm so curious how you learned how to do this. You go from like, I'm throwing like punk rock little events in my neighborhood with whatever, everybody can gather, to being in front of the camera on the news and doing little segments and morning shows and so forth, to like, hell, screw it, let's burn it all down. Let's start a production company and figure this piece out. Now we're doing documentaries and commercials, and so running a team. Where did you learn it? Because if you go, I don't know the timeline there, but quitting your work with the news and then just like starting freaking fresh, man. I don't know if you had connections before or what, but what you've built is just wild. And the skill set that you attain, it seems like you've been born with. I know that's just an illusion. You freaking figured out how to do it. Walk me through a little bit of those early stages.
I had just had 2 kids a year apart. I was working on the morning show. I was getting up. I was up all night with these 2 babies and then going to work at 4:30 a.m. or something like that. It was nuts. And I knew that wasn't sustainable. And at that point, I started thinking, I'm pretty sure I could make more money using my skills doing something different and not getting up at 4:30 in the morning. So slowly I started to take on clients on the weekends, and I was editing at nighttime. And
doing what? What were you doing?
I was doing like little videos for them, just promotional videos. So
Editing, all of it?
All of it. So I bought a camera, I bought some lighting and some audio equipment, and then I just started booking them in on weekends and filming. I'd have like green screen set up. I'd rent studio space, and then I started making these promotional videos at the same time I was working at the news station, and it just spiraled. Like it just like so quickly. It was word of mouth. I had a bit of I had some notoriety because I was like the community news lady. But yeah, I mean, it was people telling their friends like, yeah, she did this video for me, pretty professional. And she did it in 24 hours or 48 hours at the most. So yeah, the word spread, and I think it took only a couple of months where I was basically then doing this side business full time, and then had to leave the station. Yeah.
So you're working full time at a station on camera, like 5 a.m. or whatever. You have two kids, two young kids. And side note, on the weekends, you are scripting, shooting, and editing short form content for businesses.
Yeah, just hustling. But I loved it. I loved it. It got me really excited. Yeah, I think there was some late nights editing. Um, Creating something on my own with no boundaries.
Yeah.
So with the news, I would come up with ideas. Like, here's a terrible example. It was Christmas time, and I was going up north to all of these communities with this Santa Claus in a plane. And, and a cameraman, and we're filming at all these Santa stops. And it was supposed to be this, like, lighthearted news piece. And I edited it to be like a song. I don't know how to explain this, where I was taking clips of the interviews and like making them rhyme with each other to Christmas music. And it was a feat. Like, it was kind of a monster project. And I finished it and I showed it to my news director at the time. He's like, yeah, that's not something we would show on the news. And I'm like, oh, you're right. This is not the platform for this kind of sort of creative fun, whatever. So I had to really dumb it down, and then, they aired it. But I think it was at that moment where I went, oh, I've kind of hit my ceiling. Like, there's nothing more I can really do here with this type of content. So, yeah.
You're kind of a rebel.
Oh, I don't think it's that. I think I just get bored really easily. I think I've always gotten bored really easily. And I think I need to. I was just having breakfast with a friend this morning, and he's 84. And he's very much like me. He's like entrepreneur, used to be in film, all that stuff. And we're talking about how we're so similar. And this guy like still runs, and he still runs a business. He's incredible. And we're talking about exactly that. Like, why have we done all these things? Why do we keep on? Because he said he'll never retire. He has to be busy and challenged every day of his life. And that's the same with me. Like, we just, if I'm like a shark. If I'm not swimming, I'm drowning. I just am not happy if I'm not having to put a puzzle piece together every day. And not saying that doesn't come with, there's definitely a downside to that. I think that there's probably a high amount of stress in my body at all time that I don't know what will culminate. What is that going to look like in 10 years, 20 years physically? But, right now I like the journey.
Yeah. Do you find that the entrepreneurial side of things is as creatively interesting for you? So you like puzzle pieces, you like to be stimulated, and like there to be constant change. So like stepping into the producer role and running this agency, is that similar to you in the sense of like finding creative problems?
To be honest, I'm learning to fit into this role. So where I was in the weeds and in the operations and actually doing the creating, that felt very natural to me. Putting out fires and troubleshooting and all of that, like always having and checking off boxes. Like, I'm really big at needing to execute all day, having things that I'm ending. And now I've moved completely out of operations of the company. I don't always know what projects they're working on. I'm solely in my office with a door closed, having meetings all day, building relationships, and trying to come up with different strategies with how to grow this business and what other revenue sources can we look at. This is not as familiar to me and doesn't feel as creative. I do like the idea of coming up with sort of, I don't know, what would you call adjacent business ideas to video production. That's neat. But I'm not creating every day. And so, yeah, it's just a transition. And this is kind of new to me. Like I moved completely out of operations only, 2 months ago or so. So yeah, I'm learning and I'm learning how to, not have like this, the motor that I naturally have it not running so excessively like it used to, like having hours where I'm just able to come up with ideas or go on LinkedIn and connect with people. Like that's foreign. That is foreign to me.
Oh, friend, I have it on, I think I have it on my agenda every single day to network and respond to people. And that is the one thing that I do not do every day. And I know it's important, but I'm like, how do people find time to do this? It's wild. I'm curious, with sitting in the kind of growth seat, and you've done, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, you guys have been able to scale really fast and you attributed that to your fast turnaround. But I'm guessing there is some other skills there that you've learned about how to build. I know a lot of really talented people who work really, really hard and they really, really struggle with getting something off the ground and getting eyeballs and attention and so forth. And I'm curious, like your key takeaways, what have you learned about getting traction, especially, you coming out of one world and getting into another and being able to build a team and having a demand and stepping into this new role that you've stepped into. What are your reflections from that?
Well, I think that a lot of my success has come from, whether you believe in manifestation or
Oh, we do here.
I I've always had this weird perspective of abundance and that anything you dream, you can make a reality, and saying yes to every opportunity. And I've had that. I mentioned this to you before. I mean, I've had that since I was young. And, I finished high school and thought, I want to live in a beautiful place on my own. And, got dropped off in Jasper, Alberta, when I didn't have a plan or a job or a place to live. Like I had nothing, but I just kind of thought, well, it's going to work out. And it totally worked out. And then, I worked on a cruise ship as a blackjack dealer because I heard that was a cool job. And then I always wanted to I wanted to be in the wild and tree plant. So I did that in BC. And then I moved to Toronto where I thought I'm going to be in the film industry. I know nothing about film. And then I walked up to, there was a film set happening. I was just walking around this neighborhood and there's a film set in this house and there was a bunch of people outside. And I just went up to them and started talking to them and then said, hey, could I go inside and look around? Because they were on a break. And I went in, I started talking to every person, the grips, the gaffers, the director, everyone, and just introduce myself and like, tell me about your role and what do you do? What does that mean? What's this equipment? How does this work? And, like a total nerd, but I was so genuinely interested in everyone. And then started talking to sat down with the makeup artist as she was doing makeup on the actors. And I'm like, how did you get into this? And this is really cool. And how do you know what should the makeup look like on these people? And we chatted. And then someone came and told her that she was double booked. And she said, they said, you know anyone else who does makeup? And I went, oh yeah, I do makeup. And they went, yeah, really? Oh, for sure. I do makeup on myself. And then rented a makeup kit and started working doing makeup for another film. And then that just kept, they kept referring me to other projects. And then all of a sudden I was, a makeup artist for a while and just loved it. So it's not like I faked my way through things in a little bit. That scenario I kind of did. But I think I just thought, would see an opportunity and go, okay, I'm not ready. I don't quite have the experience, but I think I can go all in and figure it out. And that's the mindset I've had forever. Like, there is never a no. There's never an idea that I can't do something. I don't put limitations on myself or what I think we can create as a company. I'm all about taking really big swings, because the idea of not going for it is would give me more anxiety than doing the thing and failing. So that's helped me, I think.
I'm getting resituated because I'm ready to dig into this. This is good. I between all the shows I've done, hell, God, my God, I don't even know how many interviews, and it's wild when you just see there's just been themes that's popped up, no matter what industry, no matter what. Folks have said similar things in different arenas, and this is a theme right here that you've hit on, is this kind of, it seems too simple to say just bravery, but this what the hell type mentality of like, I'm gonna throw my hat in, I'm going to try, I'm gonna make the phone call, and being really resilient to no's and failures and not letting it seep into your heart. And it is a theme I have seen over and over again with folks who have really done anything of significance. And I think what's easy is to tell ourselves is that, oh, it's easy for Tara because she was just born that way, and she's, been a punk rocker since the beginning, and she can say screw the man and do it. But it's a skill set, and it's something that we can learn and develop. And I'm curious, from your perception, how do you hone in on those skills? How do you become better at being brave?
You have to practice embarrassment. You have to do you have to do things.
Embarrassment.
Yeah.
Woo.
You have to do things that are going to get you laughed at, and you have to feel it, think about it, process it, and go, well, that didn't kill me. I mean, I've been in a lot of situations where I've maybe taken big swings and completely embarrassed myself, where I feel like my face getting hot, I'm like sweating, I'm realizing I maybe overspoke or misspoke, or I'm yeah, I mean, I've had tons of situations throughout my life because I take big risks. They don't always work out. They sometimes make me look like a total idiot. But the feeling of that is never as bad as you think it's going to be. You work it up in your head that, you'll be doing this walk of shame, and you'll just be like sick, and everyone will be talking about you and looking at you. And no one has the bandwidth to look at you in embarrassment and then hold on to those feelings in a negative way at you forever. They're not going home and thinking about it. They're not waking up the next day going, oh my God, did she ever fuck up? And then a week later, oh my God, I remember that meeting still. She's, what an idiot. Like, no, they moved on. They don't care anymore. And it doesn't end up feeling that bad. And then you build thicker skin. I mean, I'm still sensitive to some things, and some things still bother me, but I think they come out faster. I don't like internalize it where I feel it in my bloodstream anymore. It's like, just move on. Life is too short. Look at the big picture, and also go, okay, I'm healthy, I'm eating, I've got everything I want at my fingertips. Family is good. You sometimes you just got to think about those things and then realize, oh, those little nuanced embarrassment, feeling bad about yourself, whatever, just so like insignificant. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. What about this? You have a freaking full schedule. You're busy, you're managing people, you're just keeping up with the upkeep of everything, and then also trying to look forward and cast vision and move everybody towards a direction. I'm curious how you keep your head above the water to identify some of those risks that you need to take. I don't, my experience, I guess, is I have, you know, the move the needle tasks, the things, and they seem kind of, yeah, there's this little risk and there's little risk, but it's rare that I'll get my head above the water and take the time to identify some bigger risks that I need to take. And I'm curious if you, I guess, have time set aside for vision casting, or is it just like in the moment where you're like, hey, that kind of scared me a little bit. Let me pursue it a little bit. How do you constantly take risks when life, I guess, seems so, in order to move the needle forward, you need to be ritualistic and have a routine?
Hmm. Good question. Um, so it's how do I prioritize the risk taking or
The more personal development books I read and all this stuff, it's like my life has gotten to be so rhythmatic, and rhythm helps move things along and keeps it alive and forward. And that's how I've ever progressed, is creating rhythm in my life. But it's interesting trying to introduce risk and a little bit of chaos and uncertainty in that in order to move the ball forward while keeping a rhythm and a pace, if that makes sense. So, hypothetical situation, but let's say, you have an agenda for the week that moves the needle forward and closes deals and so forth. Creating time and space in your life to not only identify certain risks that you might be able to take, but also have the bandwidth to follow through on those risks. Sometimes I question that because it seems counterintuitive to what I'm working on. If that makes sense, like Heather, slow and steady race, wins the race, and just be consistent, versus sometimes saying screw the rhythm and the consistency and go after something freaking big, even if it pulls you away from
mm,
the tried and true. Does that make sense?
yeah, I think I start to panic or feel very uncomfortable when I have a rhythm. Like when things are just um, functioning, um, when things are consistent, something in my body starts to get a little bit uncomfortable, and I feel like I always need to shake things up. It's like, yesterday I came up with talking to someone, I came up with a business idea. And so now and it's to do with our production company, but it's like the potential of creating a studio space with, integrating props and all this stuff. And then, the idea builds, and I'm thinking, no, this needs to be like a creative park, and there needs to be, spaces for people to create, and we need to bring in other people, like I think that I need to be creating something that feels really big and almost unattainable all the time. Like I need to have these projects ongoing, and some will work out and some won't, but they might lead to something else. They might lead to meeting someone who's pivotal in another project, or yeah. So no, I'm like, I don't think that it's good advice to say that you shouldn't find balance and rhythm in life. I just don't think I've ever been comfortable there. I like the spontaneity. I like change. I like looking in my calendar for the week and seeing like a lot of different experiences. That excites me. So,
When you're in a rhythm and you feel like, hey, oh, there's something I need to kind of add some flavor and risk and diversity in this, what questions do you start asking yourself? Like, how do you kind of introduce and find some of those risks and big opportunities and so forth?
well, the big question is always, what is going to get me more excited than I feel today? Like, what what is the thing that's going to make my team members laugh on a more regular basis? What is going to get people excited to come to work? I mean, including myself. I think it's that, like, when I feel like things might be getting a bit stale or a bit repetitive, it's like, okay, what is that next thing that is going to infuse the business, the culture, the environment with energy? So yeah, I think it's that. I think I'm just like very sensitive to energy, and when that energy is kind of really stable, I need a spike.
I'm gonna start writing that. What is gonna get me excited? I love that. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it's true. When I think about starting new projects, I'm a starter. I have Jesus, but every time something new comes in, my tendency sometimes is kind of opposite. I push it out a little bit because I'm also have the producer hat on, and I think like a lot of it falls on my shoulders. A lot of the things that I get involved in, Heather will carry it across the finish line and I'll figure out how to do it. And I love that. And it's a gift, but also it's never ending with things that you can do and try and build. And you seem like you're even 10x where I'm at. And I'm curious kind of how you hold the weight of like all of these different projects and so forth. And the to-do list is never ending. And I feel like for me, the balls are always getting dropped and there's more to always do and think about and so forth. How do you kind of manage that or hold on to it? Because it seems like you're pretty holistic and like tapped into, something else and bigger than yourself. So how do you manage all of that?
Well, first of all, it's a realization that that is the game. The second that there's no longer a to-do list, there's no longer project ideas, there's no longer projects in different stages, you're no longer an entrepreneur, you're no longer a creator. It's done. Like this whole, all the chaos and the ideas and this like crazy cycle of starting things and executing things or not executing things, that's like that is essentially, it's all part of it's a gift that we get. Like it's an ongoing puzzle that you never build. You never will finish this puzzle. But you're saying, I want to fucking build puzzles all day. Well, like that's really it. And it's okay. It's okay to have projects that you don't see into fruition. That's not what it's about. I mean, yeah, sure, you do want to execute some things, or else you'll just forever be a ideator and things will just kind of sit. But that's the beauty of the things we love. I honestly think that if you just didn't have any more projects on the go, you'd probably be miserable. You'd have a different job. You'd have a 9 to 5 working for someone else. You wouldn't be doing this. So you got to see it as a beautiful thing and something you're really lucky that you are someone who can come up with ideas, and you are someone who, you have the ability to execute all the way to the end. Like that is super awesome. But the second thing I'll say is you do need help. When you're getting to the point where you are starting all of these project ideas and you're starting to feel that guilt of like, nothing is finalized, like nothing's getting pushed through, it's because I don't think people are necessarily made to do the whole process. I mean, there's ideators. Like I'm a big ideator. I love to come up with ideas, but then I want to pass the torch. if it was just me
Mm-hmm.
carrying these projects through, I'd probably be like way too stressed, pretty miserable. My creative tank would be depleted. Like that's just, I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. So yeah, getting help to manage some of these projects is important, but also just getting excited about the fact that you have projects to talk about, you have
Yeah,
projects to think about.
it's a really good way of looking at it. Last just kind of tidbit of advice, anybody who's listening who's creative, who wants to get more projects across the finish line and think like a producer and not necessarily just a creative all the time. High level, big broad question. If you had to pick one piece of advice for them, what would that be?
Um, Aside from delegating, well, I mean, my advice was I waited too long to hire people, even in the early stages. I felt like I needed to be the controller of everything, and that if it wasn't executed my way, then it wasn't going to get executed properly. And that was, that will hold people back for sure. So I guess my biggest advice is like build a team or a partner, or find people that you want to work with and share the idea and the responsibilities. I mean, that's how things get made, and that's how you keep that excitement and the energy. You got to share it. So I don't know. Is that
Wisdom. It's wisdom. It's wisdom.
it's a bit vague, but
No, it's not. It's letting go of ego and getting more scrappy
mm-hmm.
with what you're doing and thinking maybe bigger than yourself. So it's brilliant advice. I have a final question, but before then, if there's one thing that you're really excited about that you want our listeners to take action on, what would that be? Is there a social platform you want to point them to, a specific project? What can we do to support you?
Oh, on our stuff. Well, I mean, my my gut reaction was everyone should be jumping headfirst into AI and all the tools that are available.
Mm,
And the thing about the creative industry is right now it's almost like there's a divide. There's the people who
yep.
love it, are on board, they're using it in every way that they can. They see it as a tool to make things better than they could have ever done themselves. That's how I feel. And then there's people who say this is destroying us. And you just can't have that perspective of it. I mean, it's growing and it's getting better every day. It's exponential growth. You need to be um, using it to help make your life easier and make your projects better, and it assists in making you more into a more creative person. So that would be my suggestion for people if they were to jump on one thing. Um, Outside of that, I mean, in terms of Honeycut, I don't know. We have different projects rolling out all the time. If anyone wanted to check our website or watch some of our documentaries, and yeah, trying to sell a movie called Our Last Day as Kids. Sell a
Yeah.
movie. We're trying to get funding to make the movie, and then we also have we're pitching a storm. Well, it's called Storm Warriors. It's a series about storm chasers that we've developed, and
That's badass.
so yeah, I don't know. We've got some fun stuff on the go, but yeah.
You're
Thanks for
you're so
having me.
fun. You're so cool. I have a final question for you, but I just want to like throw you some flowers. I just think you're a complete badass, and I'm really, really grateful that I know you now. It's rare to meet people who are just brilliantly creative, but also just freaking working their ass off and making shit happen. And that's you. And I'm just so freaking pumped that you came on our show today. Very last question. What is something in your life right now that you are deeply questioning? And it can be related to work. It can my like big question right now is just like, why does my child keep calling me bruh when I keep telling him that I am mom? So it can be something, silly. It can be something deep. But what's been on your mind lately that you don't have the answer to?
Oh, well, I don't have, and I used to feel like something was wrong with me. I don't have a 5 or 10 year plan. I don't. And my husband has had one for as soon as he started his business, probably 20 some years ago. He knew where the business was going. He had his future mapped out. He has a vision for the direction that he and his company are headed. And I am a very different personality, where because I like the spontaneity, and I think that different opportunities are going to come about every year. I don't think that I want a vision for the future. And a lot of people would say you can't run a business that way. And for a while I thought, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I visualize where I want this company to go? And then, just recently realized, that's just not me, and that's not how I operate. And that's not, if I think I see an end goal, then I feel like I'm doing this wrong, which is, I don't know how many entrepreneurs would relate to me. I think a lot would say, well, that's not a smart way to run a business. But I think it's the opposite. I think then you open doors and you open opportunities for anything to take the business and move it in any direction. And that's more exciting to me. So yeah, that was something I've been really questioning and really struggling with. And I'm giving myself the benefit of the doubt here.
Tara, this is awesome. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.